Hi, my name is Ron Gueringer. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Captain's Table. I'd like to introduce my special guest tonight, Tom Holmoe, Athletic Director at BYU University. I've been a high school football coach for over 40 years. I was a walk-on at UCLA. I played for Coach Donahue and Coach Vermeil. We're going to probably run into a ton of guys that we know together
Yeah,
because I
sure.
know Coach McPherson was on the 49ers staff.
Yeah.
Coach Billy Matthews was on the 49ers
Yeah, I
staff.
know Billy.
We have a lot in common, people that we know together that we probably have a great deal of respect for and everything else. And so I just want to introduce myself because you're kind of talking to a stranger
Okay,
in
that's
certain
cool.
regards. Thank you, Tom, for your time. Welcome to the Captain's Table. I've kind of looked at some things. I know you're a former 49er player. We'll start with that. How was the Super Bowl the other night?
It was interesting because I went to the Super Bowl this time. The last
Okay.
Super Bowl I was at was when I was coaching in '94, and that's the last one the 49ers won. So they'd played in the previous two that I just didn't go to. I just, being the athletic director at BYU, I really don't have a lot of time to jet down to games on Sundays after late Saturday night games. And so I thought the 49ers played very well. They let it slip away. They had opportunities to win, but you have to give all the credit to that Kansas City team with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback is just a jewel. Andy Reid, he was a teammate of mine here at BYU. We played together. He's from Marshall High in LA and Glendale College, and he came up to BYU from Glendale College on the same plane that I came up from Crescenta Valley and La Crescenta for a recruiting trip, and that's where we met, and we've been friends for a long time. So I can't say I was torn. I'm 49ers in my blood, but if there's anybody in that league that I love, it's Andy Reid.
Great football coach, no doubt. Uh, let's talk about your background. You had talked about being raised in Crescenta Valley. I know this area pretty well. Uh, I know you played football, uh, did track as well. Was it another sport you were involved in as too?
Yeah, I played for Coach Gorgon, Ed Gorgon at Crescenta Valley. That was a big time basketball school, and football, basketball, and track.
Okay. Brad Holland, correct?
Bradley, we didn't play together. He was a year before I got there. He graduated a year before me, but he helped me a lot, and he was very influential for me as an up and coming, student athlete. Brad taught me a lot, pulled me aside, taught me how to shoot, taught me how to play, uh, taught me how to compete, and we've been friends ever since.
Well, another great former Bruin, and I got nothing but great respect for him. Like you said, a great basketball player back in the day. Um, Here's the next question for you. Did you have any inspirations? Or I know you talked about, you kind of just went out and played on the daily. Was there anybody who really inspired you as a youth to be an athletic person?
Yeah, my older brother Steve, he's 9 years older than me, and he played football and baseball at Crescenta Valley High School. And he was a little bigger than me. He was a linebacker. I was a quarterback and defensive back. But when I was a little kid, I would watch him play every game, and he would teach me all the tricks of the trade. And there's no question in my mind that he was a mentor to me. He would get me, you'd like this, Ron, when I was a sophomore in 75, 76 at Crescenta Valley football, he bought me a pair of Nikes that were white, and they were like mesh, and they were really super light with a waffle bottom. And everyone on our team had like Rydell and spot bills.
Yeah, the
And
big heavy
they
shoe.
were
Yeah,
black shoes. And
yeah.
I had these white shoes, and he just would do anything to help me. He taught me, he'd buy me bats and gloves and balls and teach me, and we'd watch TV together and we'd watch games. And so when he actually played football at UCLA. He went there when Tommy Prothro was the coach in
Okay.
1969, and he fractured a vertebrae in his neck in the Stanford game in a freshman game, and that was it. That was his last play. When he finished, it was very difficult. He was a better athlete than me, and that was his dream. And so he could have just walked away, but he kind of helped pass his dream on to me. And so that's the one person in my life that really pushed me and pulled me and gave me everything I needed to get to where I'm at.
Fantastic, fantastic. You talk about balance a lot. I checked some videos and heard you speak, and it was fantastic to hear some of the things because I'm always learning too. I think you said that. Talk about the balance in your life as far as being at BYU your first time around as an athlete and a player and a student.
Well, I think I learned that back in Locker Center. I think Locker Center was like Camelot for me. I mean, you would wake up in the morning, you wouldn't put your shoes on, you go down to the park and start playing football or baseball or whatever. If it was basketball, you have to get your shoes on. But we would just play, play, play. And you know, when it was school, we had to go to school. And our parents and the families that we were raised with, they taught us balance. It was a good neighborhood. And, you know, when I got to Crescenta Valley, one of the things I think is important about balance is roles. And I think that that's been a significant part of my coaching and playing career and in administration. And that is when I was at Crescenta Valley, I wasn't the best athlete. You know, every sport that I played, there were better athletes than me all the way through. But I learned that if you can play the role that your coach wants you to play and you can contribute to the team, then you're going to be successful as a team. And if you're successful as a team, then you're gonna have success as an individual. And if you don't have success as an individual, that's kind of on you. You know, you have to get better, you have to work harder. And I had coaches in high school that really, really pushed me. I had coaches in Little League that really pushed me. But like you said, Ron, they didn't push me beyond what was good for me. They pushed me in academics, in my physical stature, trying to get stronger and faster and bigger. And they pushed me spiritually to be able to do that. When I got to BYU, you know, this is you're a scholar athlete in college. You gotta work way harder in college. And so I chose BYU because it was a good balance between athletics and academics. And I had seen my brother had said, "Hey, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. Look at me. I got there was 1 year. I was set for the NFL, and I'm in and out of UCLA in 1 year. Back in those days, they didn't honor your scholarship if you got hurt. And
Right.
so he taught me you're going to do academics first. And so like I just always had that out front, and it helped me a tremendous amount to be able to not have all my eggs in one basket, and to be able to plot a pathway for the future for me.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Let's talk about your career a little bit at BYU. You made all WAC, did some good things there. Just talk about your career, some highlights during that time, um, things like that.
You know, it's interesting you ask that question because a lot of people ask me that question. Hey, tell me like the highlights of when you played. And I think they want to know kind of like my individual highlights. When I was at Crescenta Valley, we won in every sport. And like I said, I wasn't the best, but I just learned to love winning championships.
Right.
And so, like, when I think of highlights from BYU, I really think of the teammates that I had. I had a
Right.
chance to play. Like, I was a quarterback in high school and got recruited to BYU to play quarterback. But then I shattered my finger on my throwing hand in my last game of my senior year. I had to have a surgery. My hand was in a ball. And they said, well, and so a lot of teams dropped me. I had to scramble. That's kind of how I ended up at BYU. I didn't even know where BYU was until I got hurt. And then they said, well, we got these two guys that are quarterback that are in the queue, and they're pretty good. So we'll move you to DB. That was a Mark Wilson, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame,
I
and
know. Yeah.
Kaptain, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And
Talking about two
so
quality guys,
they moved me
a
over.
Raider and a Bear. So I know
Yeah, that's
exactly
right.
who you're talking to.
So
I'm old enough to know.
they moved me over to defense, and that worked for me. But like I had teammates like Andy Reid, I just mentioned, Kyle Whittingham, who's the head football coach at University of Utah, and he's going to be a College Football Hall of Fame coach.
no
That
doubt.
was why we came in together as freshmen. So, like, the thing that I try to help, I've been the AD at BYU for 19 years now, and I try to help our student athletes understand, man, this is the time in your life where you want to grab onto your teammates. You want to give everything you've got now, because if you give more than you take now, you'll have them in your life forever. And so, like, I got Greg Gorgit and Mark Kelly and all my kids from my boys from Crescenta Valley. We were so tight and we did so much together then. Here we are 50 years later, close to 50 years later, and we're tighter now than we were when we played. And it comes down to, like, you asked those memories. Yeah, I can remember some games where I might have had a better game one than another, but I'm thinking about the championships and the teams. You go to the 49ers and it's the same thing. I mean, my teammates mean so much more to me than what I accomplished as an individual.
I got you. No doubt about that. I recognize that from, like I said, one of your other interviews. You talked about being an AD and clearing the path for your kids. I want to speak on that shortly, but let's just talk about some of the other things and then we can get to there. Uh,
Sure.
let's talk about Bill Walsh's influence on you, and then we'll talk about Lavelle Edwards, and then you said there was a contrast between the two, and I'm just kind of curious what the difference was. Guys like me would be really interested in that.
Yeah. Well, I got to BYU, and Lavelle Edwards was a coach that he wasn't a real strong X's and O's guy. He grew up kind of running in high school and in his first college job at Utah State, running the single wing. That's all they ran.
Right.
And he got the job at BYU as an assistant because the coach wanted to run single wing, and he knew a little bit about it as a position player and position coach. But when he got to BYU, he realized that the future of college football was throwing the ball. And so when he got the head job, he totally flipped. He brought in some of the great coaches in college football. Roger French was an offensive line coach. He had a guy named Dave Cragthorpe that won a national championship at a small division, Idaho State. He brought in Ted Tollner at USC, Mike Holmgren, who went to the 49ers and to the Packers and the Seahawks. He brought in just a whole load of these guys where he worked on the players. He was a connector. He was all about relationships. He was going to bring the absolute most out of your ability to compete. And then he left it up to the coaches to be able to bring out and develop those kids. When I got to the Niners, Bill Walsh was way beyond that. It was like, now he was a guy that his X's and O's acumen were unbelievable. And the way that we just knew that if we listened to what he said, he'd put us in a position to get better as individuals and win as team. And so they were very different in that Lavelle was more of a relationship guy and Bill was more of an X's and O's and strategy guy. But you take the best of those two and you see a lot of good stuff.
Got you. Fantastic. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back on the captain's table. We're back with Tom Holmoe. You're the athletic director. You're moving into the Big 12, and changes happen rapidly in in college football. Not even 10 years ago. What's to say 5 years ago? NIL, all kind of things. Talk about that a little bit. First, jumping into the conference, how you feel about that, your chances in sports, and then we'll talk a little bit about NIL.
Well, when I first came here to BYU in '78, BYU was in the WAC, and Arizona State were in that conference. The very next year, they went to the Pac-10. It was the Pac-8.
Right.
And, at that point in time, as when I first saw that this is like the BYU was a good program at the time, really good, but we weren't in the best conference. And so then we went to the Mountain West Conference, and it just, by that time, you saw this P5, Power Five versus Group of Five. And we were kind of getting left out. Two teams in our conference in the Mountain West, TCU and Utah, went to P5 schools, and their programs gained immense strength. And so, like, I've been seeing this for a long time, that in order to play and be the best, you got to play against the best all the time. In
Right.
order to be great, you have to get the best recruits, and the best recruits want to play at the P5, and we weren't there. So we made a course, changed our course, went independent in hopes of gaining enough, notoriety and attention that we could one day get into a conference like the Big 12 where we are now. So that was our desire from the very beginning. We were invited in when Texas and Oklahoma went to the SEC. Shortly after that, USC and UCLA went to the Big 10. That's where we got our invitation to the Big 12, and then the Pac-12 fell apart.
Right.
Growing up in LA, having a brother that went to UCLA, going to SC games when I was a kid in the Coliseum, it blows my mind that there's no Pac-8, 10, or 12. It just blows my mind. I can't, even to this day, when I hear and see that those schools are leaving, it's hard for me to believe. But like you said, Ron, there's so many changes going on, realignment. NIL, I think that we as practitioners in the game for years, I've been in this job for 19 years as AD, we let too much water under the bridge without helping student athletes get more of that revenue that was coming in. It was just gross. You had coaches and ADs making a ton of money and nothing I'm talking about even like food and stuff. So it was just so gradual and such a divergence in that, or discrepancy, I should say, that there was problems and issues that came. You could almost see them coming. So here we are now. We deserve NIL, meaning with the problems that we deserve that because we didn't do a great job. I like NIL for the student athletes. I think it's cool that I was once a student athlete. You were, you were
Right.
trying to, you had to go to Taco Bell and McDonald's and scrap around to get some. Now these kids, they got meals, they got to come, and that's how it should be. But that doesn't mean that it makes it any better for the game. And I don't think that NIL and the transfer portal are really great for the game.
Right.
I'm happy that student athletes are able to participate in some of that revenue generation, in which they should. And Ron, we have a couple of years to try to get this right, or it's going to be something you've never seen before.
Well, it's something we haven't seen already in a
Yeah,
lot
but
of
it's
regards.
going to keep going in a different direction. But here's one of the things is this is amazing with all the craziness going on. The sport's popular. The TV ratings are
Right.
amazing. You're still seeing these amazing student athletes in every sport. You got
Right.
women's sports growing in by leaps and bounds. Women's basketball, women's volleyball, women's soccer, women's softball. It's track and field, and it's amazing. And
Right.
so something's going right. Not
Right.
everything's going wrong. And so I kind of am a believer that when all this stuff went down, COVID and this, you just got to look at the bright side of it and chart your course to how you're going to take advantage of it. Not how there's too many people out there saying, woe is me. We can't deal with this. This ain't going to work. It's not like it was when I was a kid. That's not going to get you anywhere. So do the best you can with the rules, even if they aren't what you and I, we've been down this road before. It's not the same road as we traversed it years ago, but it's still a good road.
Well, that's one of the things, and just looking at some stuff and hearing you speak now, I've been really impressed how you've been able. I'm gonna call us both old dogs, but how you've been able to adapt and change to an environment that is here now.
Yeah,
Talk about that a little bit.
I'm gonna share a quote that I heard years ago and I liked it, and that is evolution is undefeated, meaning things around you are going to change, and
Right.
if you don't change, you're going to probably fall behind. Now, there's some things I want to stress, Ron. I think that there's principles of the game and principles of character that should never change,
Right.
and I believe that. But
Right.
the world around us is constantly changing, and we have to continually adapt. And if you don't adapt, you're not going to survive. So I'm going to share one quick story. And I served on the NCAA men's basketball committee for 4 years a little while ago. And that's a group that picks the March Madness teams, and you
Oh
pick
yeah, I
the
understand.
bracket
Yeah,
and
completely.
locations and everything. It was a great, amazing time in my life to be able to be on that committee. And one of the things that we did as our service is we would be at the first and second round games, we'd be assigned, and you'd sit at the scorers table on the very end, right next to one of the coaches. Another one of our selection buddies would be on the other side. And so one of the years I had Coach Krzyzewski in Duke, and the coach was like 70. He was in his early 70s at the time, not know exactly. And coach played for Bobby Knight.
Right.
Like, it doesn't get any, you know, this is how it
Tougher.
is.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
way
yeah.
or the highway. It doesn't get any more than that. Then, and he played for Bobby Knight, not at Indiana, at Army. He was
Right,
at military academy. And so, like, when I watched him at Duke, he had already won multiple titles. But he's now with these young bucks. He had
right,
these young dudes. And as in my assignment, I was able to be at practices, sitting there on the bench. If they needed anything from the NCAA, I was the one.
got you.
And he allowed me, and all the coaches were very good, allowing us to sit there and watch. I kept my mouth shut, didn't ask a question. But what I noticed, Ron, is that he was a modern day coach, an old dog like you and I talked about, but a modern day. He transitioned. And one of the things was I saw older coaches that were still really good with the X's and O acumen of the game, but they couldn't connect with the young dudes. And this is somebody that, even though he was an older dude, he could connect. And he had affection for these kids, and they
Right,
felt it. And they would
right,
lay it out on the line for their coach. And I
right,
came back and I told all my guys, the AD at BYU, and I got all my coaches together and said, guys, if Coach K can do it, you can do it. And I'm
right.
not saying you got to change your stripes. You got to be your core. Don't try to be somebody else. But if you cannot connect with this day and age kid, you can't coach.
You're right. There's no doubt about it. That's a great story, and I appreciate it. Let's talk about, do you think recruiting has changed on the high school level because of the transfer portal? Let's
It's
talk about that. Being a high school football coach, my
yeah,
frustrations are huge now because the guy who we would say we might have been marginal in the sense of we weren't recruited by everybody in the world a lot of times, but opportunities seem to be uh, far and less for that high school athlete.
yeah. I mean, you're right on, Ron. Let me just tell you. I mean, between COVID, getting extra years for collegiate athletes, and that means less spots for high school kids because of COVID. And then
Right,
you have transfer portal, where basically a lot of schools right now, they're recruiting other schools. They're not recruiting high schools. So
right,
it's really tough because the numbers and opportunities for high school kids are way less. And the thing that's kind of a little bit unnerving for me is that the strategy of college coaching was you'd go after 5 stars if you could, Ron, but like most people don't load their lineup with 5 stars unless you're, a blue blood in basketball, or Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, name the school. In the
right,
old days, USC, they could get whoever they wanted. No
right,
unlimited scholarships. And then you developed younger kids, the freshmen, that were not 5 stars, and those are your core guys. And I'm a strong believer that every great team has 5 stars or great players and core guys that are like the heart and soul of that team. They
right,
represent, and that's kind of what your guys are. And
right,
that's how Crescenta Valley was. Besides Brad and Greg Gorgian, those were the only 5 stars that came out of our school. You had
right,
to you had to go somewhere and develop. And right now, Ron, I don't see very many coaches and colleges having a plan where they're going to recruit kids that need to be developed. If JCs used to be able to take kids that couldn't make it academically, now
right,
kids just go. They don't. Some will go to JCs, but they'll just get into lower divisions and then they'll transfer out.
Right.
And unfortunately, it comes to at a cost for high school student athletes.
Oh, no, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. We'll be right back on the captain's table. When you went from La Crescenta or Crescenta to BYU, different environment completely, correct or
Oh,
not correct?
yeah, for correct, for sure. Like, I
Want
mean,
you to explain the differences for you and how you adapted and succeeded and mastered your way through that time.
well, I grew up in, La Crescenta is a suburb of LA, side of Glendale, between Glendale, Pasadena, up
I
in the,
know exactly.
but I mean, you're in the big city. You're in LA in those days, LA was, San Diego to San Francisco, I mean, just LA. I loved LA. It was a great, great place to grow up. And I always say I'm from LA. And then they'll
Right.
say, where? I don't know. A lot of people don't know La Crescenta, but it's the city. It's a metropolitan area. I
Oh,
remember
I know it
flying
without
to
a doubt.
Salt Lake City. That's where the airport was. Provo's about an hour south on the road. And we get in a car and we're driving south. And after about 15 minutes, we're in the country. There's
Right.
nothing but orchards and wheat fields, and I'm looking around out the window and it's snow in the mountains, and it's mountainous. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not in Kansas anymore. This is not the big city. And then we get off the freeway and you get up and all of a sudden here's BYU. It's like the land of Oz. It's built, it's just right there. There's very old around it. When I got up here, it's a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, is a sponsor, it's a sponsoring institution. So it was very, very conservative, and it was a big, big school. Like, I'm gonna say at that time probably 26,000. Now it's 33,000 students, and it's a big school. But one thing I loved is they loved their sports, their football, basketball. Danny Ainge was here at the time, and we became good friends. And I knew guys on the basketball team, Wally Joyner, Corey Snyder on the baseball team. And man, I never heard of BYU, but this is like a jewel hidden in the mountains. It was hard. It was hard because I was homesick a lot, that first time. But this is a very important. I picked BYU. No one picked it for me. So when I got homesick and things were tough, and I redshirted my freshman year, so for the first time in my life, I wasn't even playing. I mean, I'm up in the stands watching my team play, and that didn't go over very good in my heart. But I picked the school, and I'm going to make it work. And so I doubled down on my academics. I said, nothing's going to get in my way. And then nothing distracted me. I just did everything in my power to learn how to play and be really good at defense as a defensive back. I had a coach that was an NFL player, two coaches, Fred Whittingham, Kyle's dad, was
Right.
a coordinator, and he was an NFL player. And Dick Felt, who was played in the All Pro and with the New England Patriots or Boston Patriots and a couple other teams. And these two guys taught me stuff that you don't get in college. It was like only the tricks of the trade. And so I just knew that if I put my effort, if I gave everything I had, and then I was not distracted, it was in my hands. And if you can keep that in your hands, you can't complain. And so, I was fortunate enough to be around great players and great teams. We had a ton of draft picks. And so there were coaches out every day
Right.
watching my teammates. So by the time I got to be a senior, my coach came up to me and said, "Hey, if you have a good year, you're going to get drafted." I almost fainted, Ron. I never thought I'd get drafted in the NFL. But he said, if you stay healthy and play like you should, you're going to get drafted. And I got drafted, and I look back, and it was a combination of my effort and the people around me. And that's what you got to surround. A good friend of mine that works development here for BYU, a fundraising, is named Chad Lewis. He's an all pro with the Eagles. And he wrote a book called Surround Yourself with Greatness. And you know this, Ron. as you're growing up as an athlete, you get choices. You can surround yourself with with people that are taking you in a wrong direction, or you surround yourself with guys like Brad Holland when I was in high school. And when I
Right.
got here, I knew who to connect with. And
Right.
so, like right now at BYU, my main thrust with these kids, men and women athletes, be careful who you associate with. You put yourself with people that are going to put you on the right path so that you don't get distracted. Man, you know this, Ron. When we were playing high school football, how many kids were so good that we played against? And they never saw the light of day at a college because they couldn't get out of high school. And it's
Right.
unfortunate because sometimes the circumstances are way different than mine. But like
Right.
I pain for those great athletes that never got that chance.
No doubt about it. You talked about clearing a path and your role as an athletic director that you started initially with a lot of hands-on stuff, and you were able to now delegate to other people and clear a path more for your student athlete. Talk
Yeah.
about that, sir.
Well, when I first got here, I thought that the culture needed a little change with the athletic department, and I felt like I had to get my hands dirty a lot every day just to make sure that every department and unit was doing it the right way. And then we through the years we initially collected some great great employees, great teammates that I could see had talent. And one of the things at BYU, a lot of my people have stayed for a long time. And so like we built this team together that they could do it. They didn't need me. And so I'd say the last 10 years, maybe, I spend most of my time in a day with the student athletes and the coaches. And I let my people do the work that they are really great at. And look, I'm not just cruising around at practice all day. There's things I got to do, but
Right.
that's my primary area of responsibility. And so I like that the most. It's given me, I think, longevity because I love the energy that I get from these student athletes and these coaches and talking with them. And I don't talk X's and O's because I'm not the coach anymore. I had my share. I had my opportunity to coach. It's been 19 years since I've coached, 20 years. But now what I get to do is I get to share. And one of the things you said earlier is so important. If you're not learning today, you and me, you're falling backwards. And I
No
just see
doubt.
athletes that get here and they rest on their laurels about how they were in high school. You got to learn new tricks. You got to learn new things. You got to get bigger, faster, stronger. You got to build relationships. You got to understand your teammates better. And that's what I'm sharing in these days. That's my bliss, Ron.
I think that's fantastic. Uh, when you were at Berkeley, and just out of curiosity, were you there the Russell White years?
As after Russell.
Okay, so you were just after Russell.
Yeah.
You talked about that process as well as failure teaching you something. And I think young people tend, and parents in particularly, try to keep kids from failure so much that they don't understand how much that teaches someone in the long run. Speak on that some.
I mean, I think that's a life principle that we only get stronger through experiences and failing so that we can learn and get better. So it's like we've all heard you get stronger physically by breaking down your muscles. They break them down and then you get stronger. They build stronger. And as I look back on my career, whether it was in high school, college, professional as a player or as a coach or as an administrator, man, I've had a ton of failures. But when I was younger, I used to be anxious about failure. And then through the years, through being around great leaders, they taught me nobody gets to be at the top unless you get crushed early on. And then you get better and stronger. And people will fall away. And as long as you get knocked down 7 times, get up 7 times. You got to just keep getting up. And
Right.
a good example, Ron, is I felt like I coached at BYU. for 2 years as DB coach. Then I went to Stanford, had some great players there that I really loved and coached with Coach Walsh. Then the 49ers brought me back, and I had some great players, Deion Sanders, Merton Hanks, Tim McDonald, Eric Davis. These were some guys that, like, that was, oh my gosh, that was my joy of coaching. And I felt like I had the world by a tail.
Right.
I got out of pro ball, went to college, and I felt like I was a good assistant coach. I felt I
Got
was really good, but I wasn't a great head coach. I really struggled. It was super hard. I was young. I was in the Pac-12, and those coaches were pounding me. John Robinson, Bruce Snyder, all of
got
them.
you.
They were just.
Right.
I had good teams at Cal, but we couldn't win,
Right.
and I wasn't good, and I failed. And that was the first time in my life that I was responsible for a group failure,
Right.
not necessarily myself whiffing 3 times and learning I got to learn how to take pitches and whatever. This was me. And it hurt. It was super hard. But I learned through that experience, getting fired at Cal. I learned through that experience, hey, if I'm going to be better, I got to learn. And so then if I get another job, I'm going to do this, this, and this differently. And thank goodness I got another job because I changed the way I did things. And I share a lot of the things that I go down the wrong road. One of my favorite things now with the coaches here at BYU is they know I don't share with them all my wins. I share mostly my losses. I said, you're walking down a road that I've already traveled and it leads to a dead end. Unless you turn around and go back, you're going to have to experience, and you shouldn't have to experience it vicariously through me. I don't need you to fail. I can
Right.
tell you what it is, and I'll teach you the lesson now so you don't even have to feel it. And then you'll get better. You can learn from the lesson without getting crushed. And I love to do that.
Well, that's fantastic. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on the captain's table. You talk about role play, and everybody has a role. Let's talk about that and how you do that with your athletic staff right now.
Okay. I just love it because when I was at Crescenta Valley, I said, I played a role. I wasn't the best. Whatever they needed, that's what I do. When I got to BYU, I wasn't the best. And you learn that role. And if you can be great at it, you'll get a bigger role. There's nowhere, I've never seen it, Ron, where you get better and better and better in your position where people don't come after you and go, let's do something, let's do some more. People
Right.
want to be around people that have success and grow, but they don't want to be around people that are begging for jobs. And someone told me a long time ago, Tom, don't be looking for jobs. The best way to get a job is to be great and have people come after you. And I like that. And I've shared that a lot with my coaches here. Don't be chasing jobs. Just if you want to be great, fill up, learn the role that you have, and so you won't be weak. And that's what happened. When I became a head coach too early. I shouldn't have taken that job because I wasn't ready. But I only learned that in hindsight. So I think there's playing roles where you're not the top dog, just learn from it. Now, sometimes you get a job and you're there for a long time and you need a change. That's a different story. But like
Gotcha.
when you're on a team and you're successful, you're gonna have opportunities. So play the role to the best of your ability and don't try to play a role that someone's not giving you, but you want to take it from someone else. I don't like that.
Fantastic. I'm going to throw a couple names at you. Some Inland Empire athletes that have played at BYU, and then I'm sure you're very proud of. One was my quarterback, and ended up being an All-CIF Player of the Year, and played DB for you guys, Caleb Hayes.
Yeah, Caleb transferred in here from Washington State,
Right.
and when he first got here, I wasn't quite sure how he would fit. It's very difficult. This is hard. The culture of teams, the great teams, is really strong, and he was coming from the outside. He wasn't great academically. He just really wanted to be an NFL guy. And, I'm cool with that. But from the time he got here, he was super kind, and we had a great relationship. And he worked hard. He sacrificed for his teammates. He learned. He made mistakes, and then would come back and not make the same mistakes again. And he grew and grew and grew. He's on the NFL right now. And I walk down. We have all the NFL players' pictures in the hallway in our football offices. And when I walk by and see Caleb Hayes, it brings a smile to my face because he earned it. He earned that, and I'm so proud of him.
No doubt about it. Tyler Algier.
You're gonna get me emotional now, Ron. This is a kid that came here as a walk-on, and he just was a kind of the strong, silent type. He was super physical, not real tall. He started out on defense as a linebacker. He was fast and had great movement, but he wasn't like big enough to really be that great. I thought he was kind of a hybrid between a safety and a linebacker. I thought he should have played safety. I like big safeties, but they moved him to running back, tailback, and he just exploded. He has incredible vision, and he has this desire and this passion to compete, competes like crazy. There's this one play where an interception, ASU, we throw an interception, and he chases it from behind and strips the ball. It made every social media highlight it's still out there, but it just proved to me that it wasn't about him not being in the play. It was about what can I do for my team. And here he is. He's a sure shot NFL star now.
Fantastic. Two great young men. I had the pleasure of knowing both of them. And like you said, glad both of them are in the NFL and quality people.
Well, hey, you
Quality.
can send more of those Inland Empire guys up to BYU. That we have a lot of women from the Inland Empire in our sports up here now.
Okay.
It's like a great proving ground for high school athletes. They compete. The competition's amazing, so they get stronger. And look at all the schools in the Inland Empire now that are just everyone in the country comes to the Inland Empire to recruit.
No doubt about it. Centennial leading the way. My son
Yeah.
coaches at Centennial, in fact.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I had a little history there myself. You talked about, is the athlete different today in the sense of how he trains versus the way we trained 30 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, in the way I'm going to come back to is the athlete different, but as far as training is concerned, the amount of technology now, I mean, it is amazing at our level in college. You're talking about analytics in the
Right.
training part. So like
Right.
the nutrition supplements that they have, Ron, these kids are so much bigger, faster, stronger, leaner. You got big kids that are lean. And we just, we didn't have that. We had these weight rooms where you're just, benching and squatting and deadlifting, and it was all there was no real strategy. It was just get mass. Where now
Gotcha.
these kids are getting so strong, it's scary. I mean,
Right.
when playing football games, when I'm on the sideline, I kind of take a few steps back because this old man can't get out of the way when that sweep comes right to the sideline.
I've been hit once or twice. I think a guy you might know a little bit, Vontez Burfict, who
Oh
played in
yeah,
the NFL.
he'll hit
Uh,
anything that moves. So he
yeah,
knows
he
what
hit
happens.
everything that moved, and he hit me one time, and I took a tumble.
Yeah, but
I was
Ron, I
too
think
old for that at that time.
I think if you can get engaged in the technology and the weight training and the nutrition and the supplements, all that training and just the strategy and how they're doing, I think there's a lot more talk about recovery than we ever talked about. There's way more talk in the importance of sleep. Like, did you sleep in high school? I never even slept. And now like our coaches tell our players that LeBron tries to get 10 hours of sleep a night, they're going to try to get 10 hours of sleep. If LeBron's getting 10 hours of sleep, I'm getting 10 hours of sleep. And
Gotcha.
these kids, they eat good meals. They don't eat crap. We just, like I said, we were eating McDonald's and Taco Bell every day. These
Right.
kids won't go there. They just,
Yeah,
if they want to be great, they're not going there.
exactly.
And so
Gotcha.
they have access now to things that we didn't. But I want to go back to this question. I think it's really important. You said, are the kids different these days in training? And I'm going to say, leave off training. A lot of people think that these kids are different, that they're harder to coach, that they don't listen. I don't buy that. What I want to say is these kids are pretty similar to us, even going back to us. They have dreams, they have goals, they have visions of what they want to become. Now, the culture around them, Ron, it's changed dramatically. I mean, like you talking about these phones that they have, and I have a phone too, I get it. But I wonder what my life would have been like if I had to look and see what people thought about my performance every time I performed. That's a hard thing for these kids. And so they are getting so much attention in like social media, and some of it's overbearing, that is too much, it's too good, and some of it's so detrimental to them that it has an effect on their mental health. And so that's the difference in our day and this day. But like, if you're going to be great at what you do, you got to figure it out. And so, like, I think that there's a bunch of people in this country at the high school level. I think it starts at Pop Warner Little League and, basketball club, where you got to start addressing those issues then, all
Right.
those issues, so that when you get into really, really competitive situations, you have that balance in your life.
I appreciate that answer. I think that's a great answer, and people need to hear that. Let's kind of finish on this note. I appreciate your time. I thank you greatly. Let's talk about your family and your wife, Lori. I know she's been a big influence on your life, and let's give her her flowers, as we say, before we get out of here. And then you
Uh,
could point to it.
and not just flowers or a bouquet. I need to give her a whole garden, Ron. Look at I met my wife, Lori, up here. She was from Loera High School in Anaheim. And she was up here at school. And Ron, I mean, we got married the summer before my senior year in college. So, like, she'd been with me through all of this. And, she's been a strength. And when things aren't good, that I can ricochet things off her, whether I like it or not. She gonna um, critique my performance as a player, as a coach, and as administrator all the time. And I like it. I trust her. And I love her. She loves me. I trust her. Like, when we get off this call, I'm going to go to a women's tennis match, BYU. And then about halfway through that, I'm going to run up to the Marriott Center and watch our women play basketball. And
Right.
my wife will be there because
Got you.
she knows that that's important to me. And so to have
Got
a
you.
wife that thinks date night is going to a BYU athletic event and it ain't football or basketball, that's a different story. I couldn't do this. She lifts me up. And like, we have 4 kids and they're all married. I have 10 grandkids. When most games I go to, they're there. We have a suite at a game, football. I have my family in there because it would be embarrassing to see my kids critiquing the game for anybody in there, because they know football, they know basketball, they know it. And I leave that in that we're a family through thick and thin. And there's been a lot of thick and there've been a lot of thin. So that's it. We've gone through a lot of tough times. Me getting criticized as a player, the Niners, you're going to be the first cut. Me being fired at Cal, making bad decisions, so to speak, in people's minds, and they stand by me and go, "Hey, he's doing it his way." We're proud of him.
Tom Holmoe, athletic director at BYU. Wishing you nothing but more success. And I've learned something today. So I appreciate you greatly.
Thank you, Ron. I mean, I appreciate coaches like you that coach me. My high school coaches are some of the most important people in my life. When people say, "Hey, tell us about the great coaches you've been with," I know they're talking about Lavelle, Bill Walsh, George Seifert, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
First thought that comes to my mind are my high school coaches. So, from us both being Southern California kids, I give all the credit to Southern California competition, all the kids I competed against that made me stronger and better. Peace to all of y'all.
All right. You take care. Have a great day. And thank you for your time again.
All right. Have
And
a good
thank
one,
Heather,
Ron.
by the way. She did a great job of putting this together for us.
Hey, I will for sure. Thanks a
Okay.
million,
Tell
Ron.
her thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye bye. Ron Gueringer, Tom Holmoe on the captain's table.